Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Paul.
Not,
Are you okay now with your
I think
sound?
so, yeah. I don't know what its little problem was, but
You can hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
All we see is the top of your head, though, Paul.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better?
Yeah,
I got a bit of a glare.
yeah, so do I. It's a problem with
I wonder,
glasses.
I wonder what that's about. Do you have a lamp above your computer screen?
I have it to the side of it, but my glasses just
All
did that.
right,
Looks
let
like
me try
Sharon,
doing this a little differently.
looks like Sharon's got it figured out. You don't have a glare on your glasses, Sharon.
No, I have an overhead light and a lamp to my side.
Okay.
Is that better, Nancy?
For the glare?
Yeah, except for the eyeglasses.
Yeah, it's what's good for you, Paul. How we look doesn't really matter.
Well, it's distracting, you know?
Yeah, well,
Hi, everyone.
hi.
Ellen,
Happy anniversary, Paul.
thank you.
Are we sure it was legal though? Weren't you kind of underage when you got married?
Yeah, I was. I was 6.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about that. Hi, Tony.
Hello, how are you?
Are you a father the second time round yet?
Not yet. She's due April 20th, so it
Yeah.
could be, but the doctor thinks it might be early April, so a couple more weeks maybe.
Okay, well, I hope you all are doing well.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see. Austin is coming in. And another attendee whose phone number I don't recognize. Hi, Sharon. Everyone have their snacks ready? Yeah.
I'm having dinner. I apologize for that unsociable activity. Maybe I'll just mute my or go black here.
I hope it's delicious.
It is actually
Good.
vegetarian.
Nancy, I did the delivery. I hope you will convey that message.
I will.
Okay.
Are you taking obstetrics now, Lynn?
Oh, no.
That's what happens when you're a medical person. Words mean different things.
I guess no, hardly that. No, just cookies, which I think you would enjoy too.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. All right, it's 7:01 and we have 3 people. Not a quorum, 4, I guess.
No, we have 4.
We have 4.
Austin is here. I don't. He's muted. Austin, can you unmute and speak up so we know you're really there and you didn't just
I am here.
sign in?
I am at work, so if I get a call, I will have to leave abruptly.
Okay.
Okay, well, we completely understand and support whatever you're doing.
Thank you.
And Ellen is here, great, coming.
Ellen Goldberg, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always give a little bit of time for Nahant. Let me see, who else?
We're looking for Mickey and Mariana and Ellen Steves.
And we have a lot of work to do, so I really would like them to be here.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call Mickey. Who wants to call Ellen Steves?
I think I have her number.
Okay, want to try that? And
Hi, Ellen's here, Ellen Goldberg.
Hi, Ellen.
hi, Ellen.
So
Oh.
Mariana just is signing
Hi.
on.
Yeah.
It's just Mickey. It's just Mickey. Okay, I'm calling him now.
Okay.
Hi, Mariana.
Hi there. Good to see you all.
Yes, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Hi, Mickey. It's Lynn Spencer, and we are about to get started with this meeting. So come along and join us as soon as you can. Okay, bye-bye now. Oh, this is community preservation on Zoom. Bye. All right. Well, I think that with that, we can get started. Good to see you, Mariana.
Thank you. Good to see you always.
And Paul, were you able to reach Ellen?
I know she's going to ask me for the numbers, so I was just copying it down.
Oh, okay, great. Well, maybe while you're doing that, I'll call the meeting to order and read the incantation from the governor.
that's
And we'll
good.
get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So this is Lynn Spencer, Chairman of Community Preservation, beginning this meeting on Monday, May 15th at 7:04. I'm going to read the summary from the governor.
March 15th. March 15th.
Excuse me, I'm always either a month behind or ahead. Thank you. March 15th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Article 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Nahant Community Preservation Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen or view this meeting while in progress may do so via Zoom, which was the Zoom link that was on the town's website, or by phone. So here we are, ready to begin. Thank you, Paul, for making that call to Ellen Steves. So let's just start with citing who's in attendance for this meeting, sort of going around the circle, if you will. Paul, will you identify yourself and your position, please?
I had muted myself so I could give a message to Ellen, but I'm here and a committee member.
And you're the clerk.
I am.
Really important. Okay, Ellen.
I'm Ellen Goldberg, Finance Officer for the group.
Yep. Nancy.
Nancy Cantelmo, committee member and representative of Open Space and Recreation.
Right. Mariana.
Iriana Maksimovic, I'm a member of the planning board and representing here the planning board.
Okay.
Austin Antrim, member at large.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm Lynn Spencer. I actually represent the Nahant Historical Commission. So also joining us is Tony Barletta. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Really glad to have you here. And I've got an unidentified, I have a phone number in the bottom, but if you could kindly identify yourself, the number is listed as 617-233-8600.
Hi, Lynn. This is Dana Sheehan from the FinCom.
Great. Very nice to have you here, Dana. I thought I kind of recognized that number. And gosh, here's Mickey Long. Mickey, we were just doing introductions.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Well, it's good that you're here. So you represent the Housing Authority, right?
Right.
Right. Other guests tonight are Sharon Hawks from the Public Library. Great to have you here. And I have another guest down below at 617-240-6962.
That's me, Ellen.
Oh, Ellen,
Good, Ellen.
marvelous.
Oh, excellent.
So now
It just took me a
here we
while.
are all gathered. So Ellen Steves represents the Conservation Commission. So this is terrific. Thank you. So on March 12th, we received the results of 8 grant applications that were submitted by various entities in town. I really want to thank Kristen Taylor, who has shepherded this through for us. You received them electronically. Ellen, did you get my hand delivered in the doorway paper copies?
Let's see. I have so much stuff here. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is a notice of intent for the Conservation Commission, which is also this week. I'm not sure if it's at 55 Castle Road. I don't have it, but
Oh,
I
I'm
got it
sorry,
off. So
Okay, I did deliver it to 55 Castle Road, but if you were able to also see them in the electronic submission, that's great.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. So raise your hand, everyone. Did you have a good read over the weekend? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, good. So just by way of some business, tonight we'll be reviewing those applications. I did prepare a summary chart, which is similar to what you've seen in the past. And so I think it might be beneficial to put that up on the screen as a guide to this conversation. I also want to share with you that working with Allison Nieto, if I pronounce that correctly, Tony?
Nieto, yep.
Nieto, who has replaced Debbie Waters in the financial department. We've confirmed the amounts available to us for use and allocation, which is in fact 2 years of funding, because the fiscal year 21 articles were not presented to the town meeting, although this committee had worked through them and passed them along for the town warrant. And now we are reviewing the fiscal year 22 articles. We are on a tight schedule to process our recommendations and pass them along to FinCom, and then ultimately to the town warrant, which needs to be to them in printed form by April 9th. So we've got some work to do. So with that, Ellen, you know that I'm so inept at putting screen sharing up. Would you be kind enough to put up the chart that the latest of the two versions I sent out yesterday, so we can use that as a guide? And then also, could you have available to put up on the screen the financial page that Allison sent to us?
So let's see, so are you talking about the updated spreadsheet that she sent today at 3:30?
Yes, please. Let's start with that one,
Okay.
because that shows the amount of money we have to work with. And then we'll go on to the chart running through the 8 applications.
Screen, Ellen, or
So
do you
there's
need
debt
me to,
service, and then there's, I'm sorry?
can you share your screen, or do you need me to make you the host?
I'm not sure yet. I'm still opening the file. I should be able to share my screen, but if not, I'll let you know.
Otherwise, I actually have it ready to put up if it's easier. I'm just not. good
It
at-
just took me a minute to get to it. I'm in the middle of transitioning to a new computer. So the one that is here is a little bit slow.
Okay. So are we.
Good to know. Good to know. Oh, there's like freeze panes on here. So let me see if I can share. Yep. Host disabled participant screen sharing, Tony.
Okay, here you go. You're going to be the host now. There you go.
Okay. As soon as I did that, I'm going to have to pause it for a second and shut down my email. Hang on. There we go. Hopefully that will help and minimize all these videos. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we sure can.
So just keep
Excellent.
scrolling down. This is the amazing.
Where do you want me to go? To the right? Yeah, because we want to
Yeah,
go
I
over-
went to
oh.
the little box at the bottom that shows the amounts of money that we have available.
Yep. Okay. So these are all the projects right here,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And go over to the right for FY 21, 22. Right over here, right? Is this where you want me to be?
No, I want you to go down to the very bottom. Oh.
Down to the bottom. Oh,
Right
here we
there.
are.
This is the one. This is
Yep.
the magic box where all the information is.
Yes.
And by the way, folks, you all must appreciate the work that Town Hall and the financials do for us, because those previous tables record all of the transactions from 2006 onwards. So it's an amazing document. If you could just open the cells up a little, then we'll see the total amounts.
You mean, yep, like this?
Yep. And then if you could go to the bottom and to the right, we'll get to what that's what we really want to look at.
Yeah, this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this shows 2 years basically of the 3% surcharge with the state match. And we are fortunate that in fiscal year 21, the state match exceeded our expectations. It was close, well, it was a 69.4% match, which you see just to the left, which was $175,000, matching the 3% surcharge of $220,938.
I'm not
So-
seeing anything on the screen. Are other people seeing it screen shared?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I just don't have it, I guess.
Well, you know what, Mickey, I actually sent it to you this afternoon.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you want to look at it on your computer.
Nikki, are you seeing the faces of the participants instead?
Yeah, I'm seeing the participant group.
Yeah, okay. There's a little corner box there that allows you to switch that for the screen share.
I've got speaker, gallery, full screen. I mean, I'm host disabled participant screen sharing. Whatever. I'll just look up while you continue. I'm not going to hold up the meeting. I'll just look at what I received from Lynn earlier
Okay.
today. Thank
If you could, and when you get that, Mickey, scroll right down to the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet and you'll find this box that you'll be familiar with because you've seen it before.
Right.
Because what this portrays is what was accumulated in the general reserve, which was $322,499.
Lynn, are you controlling the arrow?
No?
No,
Ellen
I
is.
am.
Because it would be nice if the arrow pointed to what Lynn was describing.
That's what I'm looking, yes.
Yeah, right there. Good.
So cell P153.
Right. And that is shown down below under the general reserves fiscal year 21, which is further down below in the chart. Yep. Bingo. Just above.
Well, that's 357.
No, just above.
Right?
The general, right there. I suppose I should be doing this.
Yep.
But that's where it is. And that runs across the 3 scenarios that are being projected here, which is the 40% match, the 50% match, and the 60% match. Now, when we look at the actual fiscal year 21, the next cell down, Ellen, yep, right there, less the dedicated housing reserve that needed to come out of it, even though we had recommended quite a bit for housing, they had a substantial housing reserve. So we had a small amount, around $30,000 that needed to go back into it out of the 10% formula for each of the 3 categories of CPC funding. So that leaves a net available of $357,462 and change. When we total up the projected fiscal year 22, the general reserve, and the fiscal year 21, we come up with, in the 40% scenario, $922,682. Moving up, we go to 50% match at $939, and change, and then ultimately for the 60% match at 957. So I think for planning purposes, as we are looking at the now both fiscal year 21 and 22 articles, we should bear these numbers in mind because that's the budget we have to spend. So are there any questions about that?
Hang in there for a minute. Yeah. Okay, I'll just go with the totals. How's that?
I think that that's fine.
Can I ask a question, Lynn? So
Sure.
are we going to totally reconsider the last year's submissions that were already written up from spring 2020? Or
We
just-
have that option, Nancy, and you might not have seen an email that came to me late at the end of the day today that I forwarded to you.
Yeah.
But one of the applicants has withdrawn their article. So that prompts us to actually go into that consideration. And
Okay.
that was the Nahant Preservation Trust has withdrawn the article for the historic district.
So that means there's more money for other people.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So with that, if it's all right with the group, I'd like to sort of turn to this year's applications and be able to run through those. So Ellen, since you so masterfully did this, could you pull the chart up too, please?
Yep, give me a second. I want to close the spreadsheet. And that chart, was that in one of the files that I had posted online with our group? Let's see, I think it was the grant application submissions.
It was
That's the
one that I
one?
sent out last night about 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll get that one then. Hang on.
Yeah.
It'd be good if I take the files that you've sent and just upload them into a shared folder. I think that
Okay.
would be best.
It would be good if I was really, really accurate and correct the first time I send them out. And by the way, there's a disclaimer that, you know, what I put together is subject to everyone working on it. So.
Right, of course. All right, yeah, oh, I see. Hang on. Oh no, this is the same chart.
Lynn, are you talking about the Nahant CPC FY22 grant summary?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it has applications.
Yeah, it lists the 8 applications.
Okay, I go on to list 11. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does have 11, Mickey. Has
Yeah.
11. It has
Oh, well,
11
maybe.
lines,
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I was
I'm
thinking,
sorry.
I was,
but only 8 of them are real applications.
Okay, gotcha.
exactly.
Thank you.
That's the one.
Sorry, Lynn, I saw 2 emails from you. I opened the most recent one and it opened essentially the same chart that we just,
Well, it looks a lot the
Had.
same.
No.
right. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I just
I think we want to
actually,
get out of page break preview is where I think we want to get out of. All right, I'm going to resume my share. Tell me if this is what we're looking for.
Yep,
I think that that will do
that's
it.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So these were listed in the order that they were received and provided to us by Kristen. So there's no priorities being shown here, just who got in first. So with that, let's start with the first one, which is the new Nahant Land Company applying for a master plan for the Tudor estate, which includes the building, the open space, and the recreation facilities, namely the tennis courts and the paddle tennis courts. I'd be curious to hear comments from people. This is their grant request is for $15,000, which they are matching with $15,000 for a total project cost of $30,000. When I didn't know the basis, obviously the next column, the recommendation of grant allocation, is something that we as a committee will be discussing. When I didn't have a clear understanding of various categories like the cost estimate basis, I labeled that as to be determined. So I would be curious, I would welcome comments from the group about this application.
Well, I don't mind
They
starting
plan-
long. Isn't this fall into the category of not public property?
It doesn't have to be public property.
Well, I understand that, but
Yes, but you're right. It is a privately owned property. Yes.
But there is a public good involved in the making available to the public the use of the open space and potentially more use of the developed space that's currently tennis courts and paddle courts. So I think the basis for the justification for this is that there's a strong potential for increasing public use of this facility. And there's also, unfortunately, a potential that if serious planning isn't done, that this property may not be as useful or as appreciated by the town as it currently is. So this is an organization that's trying to get the town to buy into its preservation and expansion of traditional uses, which include recreation and open space and the preservation of historically appreciated property in town. But they're only looking for funds for a planning project, for professional recommendations as to how this organization and the stakeholders who are interested in its preservation, including town members especially, can move forward to preserve it. But I have a question, Lynn, that I too have no idea whether the funds that they're asking for are sufficient to the task.
Well, that was my question. If you just scroll to the end of that spreadsheet, Ellen, you'll get some questions that I was raising.
Yeah, request basis for cost estimate.
Right, because it's a fairly large complex, and well, it is a large complex, and there's complex issues associated with this. One of which is, in fact, the applicant and its status, which I will also put forward. The new Nahant Land Company leases its property to the Nahant Country Club, which is a nonprofit. But the new Nahant Land Company has a different status, and that I think may be a source of some interest, quite honestly, as we look at this application. How would you, Paul, may I just ask you, because I know you have some involvement here, how would you characterize the status of the new Nahant Land Company?
Well, as I understand it, Lynn, and I may be wrong, but it is a chartered corporation. But on the other hand, it's never voted a dividend. It's never paid anyone a salary. All it's done is pour money back into the property,
Right.
maintaining the property for those three purposes I talked about. The major beneficiaries of its activities, even though it's a private corporation, are the country club, which, as you said, is a nonprofit, but it is a member restricted organization, even though the membership fees are relatively low.
Mhm.
Those are major beneficiaries of the property being maintained. Second are town members who use the open space kind of on an informal basis. And then town members who attend any activities, that they find attractive in the property. And finally, the cultural, excuse me, the cultural aspect of historically significant property.
Mhm. Do I also understand that the tennis courts and the paddle tennis courts are available for public use under certain sort of
No, they're available
guidelines?
every day until 5 p.m.
Right.
for anybody in town who wants to use it.
Yeah, that's what I thought I remember from the application,
Right.
which was,
That stemmed from the support that the CPC gave them about, I guess, 20% of the cost of building the second paddle court.
right.
The rest of it came from either the land company or from their own. Most of it was from their own funds. The majority of it was their own funds.
Mhm.
Can I just throw in one more thing that's the way the town uses it? When in the past we've had opening day of baseball, all the baseball kids would go to that open space and the parade would start from there. So
Oh,
it is a
nice.
little more than contemporaneous, spontaneous. It was a kind of a planned activity that
Right,
happened
right.
traditionally.
I know for many people have said to me, it's like the town green, isn't it? And it's at the center of town in a very real sense. And of course, historically, the Tudor house is a huge part of Nahant's history. So, and the Tudor house is the granite house that we see there. Other comments from the committee?
So how do we assess the question that's on the table? Like, is this a reasonable request for what they want to do?
Well, Nancy, what we would normally do is push it back to them and say, give us greater clarity on the basis of the cost estimate and also the process by which they plan to secure the services of whoever's going to do this study.
Isn't part of our question, Lynn, isn't part of our question also whether or not we believe that it fits within the guidelines of not just the categories, but to be eligible?
Well, it's so great you bring that up because I was just pulling the chart out.
Mm-hmm.
Because
well, not just the categories, but I think the broader question that people were raising right away was, is this even eligible for CPC funds? Like,
and that was implied, right? That was implied in Mickey's question. So CPC funds have very consistently and pretty consistently in Nahant been used for publicly owned buildings. However, there's a strong track record for private nonprofits, ranging from the Dory Club to the village church to the life-saving station and so on, in receiving grant funds. So I think the question really to me is in fact, the specific status of the new Nahant Land Company, and then which category of our allowable funding funding purposes would this fall into?
Well, okay, so
Lynn, this is
okay. So the applicant is the new Nahant Land Company, and they will also match it as themselves. So they're the okay. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Austin, you had a comment?
Yes, I was just wondering if it made sense to refer this to town council to examine whether it is appropriate to use public funds for the private entity. In reviewing this myself, I had come across the application for the paddle tennis courts by the same entity, and legal counsel weighed in on that and made an argument for it.
Right.
I think this seems a little bit different because of the scope of what they're trying to do. And, you know, in the guidelines, CPA guidelines, it says that any request for public fund or CPA funds for a private entity should be referred to town council for review.
That's a good point.
I'd like to just also add, if I may, I wish the applicant would say, that, you know, in number 2 project description, the CPA request is for help to complete the development of a master plan for the Nahant Country Club's public uses or open space uses. Committing to that rather than a potential master plan for private uses. It sounds to me like that's what they really want to do anyway. I'm just not sure where the commitment is that that's what this would entail, or that the $15,000 they're requesting is because they are going to commit to further open space. I'm sorry, for public use or open space use.
Mhm. That's a good point. Thank you.
Just one now. Oh, you gotta change that first.
Other than that, I'll second the motion to refer it to town council.
Okay. Do I have any other comments or questions? Do I have a second on that? Or what, that was the second. I guess Austin was making this suggestion and Mickey took that as a second. So further comments from the committee on this before we take a vote? Okay, the motion is to refer this to town council to review the eligibility of the applicant. I guess I'm going to have to go around the circle, vote for this.
Of the applicant and not the project, right? So it's the applicant status?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's up to us to determine whether it meets the criteria, which is a different subject. So can I have a show? I guess I have to go around the circle here to get the ayes or noes on this.
I guess.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask one more question? I guess I don't think I understand why the applicant makes a difference.
Because it's not a public entity.
Because it's not a 501c3, quite honestly, or a town-owned building. It's a chartered corporation.
But we've said that we've granted money to them in the past.
Because it created a public use for that project.
Right, they committed to creating a public use. So if they
right.
tomorrow decide that the tennis courts are private use, query whether we wouldn't have standing or the town wouldn't have standing to say,
correct. No, I get that, but that doesn't have anything to do with the applicant. That has to do with the project.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, I think because of the status of the applicant, it means extra scrutiny should be paid to the project to make sure that it subscribes to a public use under one of those 3 categories. So I think we really are we're asking town council to review the use, given who the applicant already is known to be.
I do see the point. Thank you. So we would be asking town council to look at their legal status as well as their application in light of chart number 1, Community Preservation Fund allowable spending purposes. Okay.
That makes more sense to me.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
And does this, everybody can we see what I'm holding up, which is our chart number 1, which is our Bible for these considerations. Thank you, Tony. Yes.
I just wanted to, as a matter of procedure for meeting by Zoom. I'm sorry, I haven't been on previous meetings, but we were advised by council that when you do take a vote, which you guys are about to do, best is for either the secretary or the chairperson to basically roll call, the last names of the members, and then that member, when their name is said, votes.
I was going to go through
I
that
know,
process.
I think you were going there, yeah.
I was going to, but I think I am looking for a modification to this motion. So I'd like to suggest, Austin, since you initially made the motion, would you like to modify this motion based on this conversation?
Yes, I'll do my best.
Okay.
Yeah, I would make a motion to refer this application to town council for review on the eligibility under the CPA guidelines.
Right, I'll so move as a friendly amendment.
Okay, great, thank you. Great, now we have the motion. So I will now ask for a roll call, asking for aye or no. So Paul Spurn,
I'm recusing myself since I'm a member of the board of the land company and the country club. I've obviously participated in discussions, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to cast any sort of a vote.
okay, thank you. Ellen Goldberg,
Aye.
okay. Mickey Long,
Aye.
I'm going to have to roll down here. Who's next?
Mariana,
Aye.
Nancy, Mariana, yes.
Yes.
Nancy Catalmo,
Aye.
uh,
Yeah, thanks.
Ellen Steves,
Aye.
okay.
She's coming down.
and Spencer.
And Austin,
Antrim, aye.
I'll vote.
and Lynn Spencer, aye. So there we have it. Thank you. Tony, I'll coordinate with you tomorrow about how we sort of pass this along to town council, okay? I guess, okay. All right, next on the roster is number 2, the Nahant Little League. They're applying for replacement of the backstop and some related fencing at their sort of central Little League facility. This is under the recreation category. The grant request is for $32,375, matched by $15,000 provided by the league from their savings, for a total project cost of $47,375. The basis of their cost estimate were vendor quotes. And Ellen, if you just kind of keep moving along, you're doing so great on this. I did not take it upon myself to comment about the completeness of the application. So I will ask for the group to tell me, did you see a complete application?
Well, I've seen enough to have an opinion as to whether we should approve this, and I'll move that we approve this application.
Okay.
I'll
Cut to the
second that.
chase, Mickey, why don't you?
I'm sorry?
Cut into the chase.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we get a lot of work here, and some of the stuff is pretty clean.
Yep.
Like this. This is about as CPC as it gets.
Okay.
for a
All right, fine. I hear you, Mickey. So you've made are you making a motion? Mickey's
I
made
did.
a motion.
I did.
Do I have
And
a
I think
second
what's
on that?
I thought
Austin
Austin,
Antrim, I'll second it.
Okay. So the motion is to consider funding the Nahant Little League in the amount of $32,375.
Can I ask a point of information here? I don't know if it's real or not, but is all across the country, Little Leagues are foundering. And is this an organization which is a going concern? Or should we consider whether money spent on this particular field site should be spent in such a way that it could serve other sports as well.
I think
Yeah,
I
I
can
thought that was
speak
the
to that.
beauty of, yeah, I thought that was the beauty of the application is others other than the Little League will be able to use a backstop in fencing.
I think the Nahant Little League is partnered with Swampscott, and from working right here, I can tell you it's extremely busy during baseball season. They have games there and practices there on a weekly basis. The field gets a lot of use.
Yeah, and this is Ellen Goldberg, and my son was in Little League for many years. He's in college now, but it's been busy for years, and it's again, lots of teams are playing there against Nahant and Swampscott.
Okay.
And we have,
And actually, folks, I did go over yesterday to take a look at it, and I can see why they're looking at to replace it.
It's also going to improve the, the attractiveness of the field when we drive, the drive-by look, if you will, the curbside appeal.
I was also going to mention that 2 years ago, you guys graciously approved a new backstop at the women's softball field. Last year, you guys approved, you voted funding. It didn't get to town meeting, but for the men's backstop and fencing. So I'd be happy to join forces with the Little League so that we can get a better price, dealing with one vendor on this.
That sounds like a good idea. Well, all right. So it is, Mickey has reminded us we've got a lot of work to do. Unless there's further discussion, I'd like to call for a roll call vote on this motion.
I'm sorry to bring up a question. It's Nancy. So the open space has this ongoing problem about balls that go over into the lowlands and the Heritage Trail. And I just don't know, there's these fencing things already on board, but is there any way to throw in a plea to try to address this issue somehow as part of fencing or as part of something?
I think it's just regular maintenance, Nancy. I think, we have to do a better job. DPW's got to do a better job of getting over there and cleaning it out behind the softball field. We thought about a net, but they actually can be pretty bad for birds.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of us doing a better job of getting in there and cleaning it up. So I've already talked to Zach about that, and it's something we're going to incorporate into our regular maintenance.
Okay, thank you. We also might request people who use the field whose balls go over there to pick them up themselves.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I just have one question / point of clarification. So we can vote on whether or not to approve a project at this point, but we need to do so in the context of the entire budget. So I assume at this point we are voting on the concept and not necessarily the final dollar amount until we look at the whole budget and make reallocations as necessary.
I think that is true.
Okay, thank you.
But I would actually hold the dollar amount that is being suggested here as we look at the bottom line. And then, as you know, we do some shaping.
Okay, thank you.
So are we ready for a roll call? Okay. Paul Spurn?
Sure.
Okay, I vote yes.
Ellen Goldberg?
Yes.
Mickey Long?
Yes.
Mariana?
Yes.
Ellen Steves?
Yes.
Austin Antrim?
Yes.
Lynn Spencer, yes. So we've got a unanimous on this.
Nancy Cantelmo, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you? Oh, darn it.
No problem. No problem.
I gotta get better at this. With practice, maybe, huh? Okay, so we've got, let's go on to the next one, Ellen. It's number 3. Very interesting. This is from the Nahant Planning Board. This is entitled the Bear Pond Ecosystem Restoration Study. It falls under the categories of open space and recreation. It is a grant request for $60,000. And it has a two-part focus to this. One is a topographical survey of this very large area. And two is the recommendations for mitigation of some of the adverse conditions that are experienced there. I will say that the lowlands and Bear Pond have been before us on previous occasions. There's been a real concern. Part of it initially was related to the Heritage Trail, interestingly enough, one of our very early funded applications. And then recently, we were approached by the town some years ago about replacing an outfall pipe, but it really didn't quite clearly fall under our funding guidelines. This is a very interesting application, and one of the things that I noted in my notes was a request for the basis of the cost estimate, and also wondering if this study has been endorsed by the Conservation Commission.
Haven't come to us yet.
Hasn't come to the Conservation Commission yet. Okay, thank you,
Correct.
Ellen. But I will be curious to hear other comments from committee members as they read this application.
Lynn, it's Austin. I thought it was very interesting and has great goals. I was sort of curious about whether it's eligible under open space, which for rehabilitation or I forget the other word, but cost to be eligible, the land had to be acquired through CPC funds, I believe. So would this fall under that with the Heritage Trail project?
Well, that under that same sort of column, and it's a very important point you raise, there is a space for something called preservation. Protect personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that has been a place that we have revisited on several occasions,
Yeah.
Austin, as we parse this.
So I don't mind moving, given the budget items. It seems to me the price is the price again will be the determining factor, but I'll move that in concept that we approve this application, but that's the pricing to be determined.
Interesting. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that, Miriam.
Can I have further discussion on this before we go to a vote? Because it's a substantial investment, and I think it has great meaning and implications. I want to just remind you all that the Bear Pond area is in fact the golf course, and the lowlands relates to all of this. It's the part of Nahant that was actually used to separate Nahant into 3 different land masses at various times until the golf course was developed basically at the end of the 19th century. So with it has come a lot of the flooding that has impacted our neighbors. And this project does have the capacity to really help us think systematically and quite honestly with an attention to the ecology of the place in a way of mitigating those factors and protecting an environmental resource.
So would you like the motion to be rephrased as approving with that funding? I'm only being reluctant on the dollar volume based on prior comments. There's only so much we have. And until we can consider what we're going to put where.
Could I provide some commentary as, from the town's perspective on this issue?
Yep.
Welcome.
So I could talk to you for 2 hours about stormwater management related to the lowlands, the ditches, and Bear Pond. It's been at the top of our priority since I started in 2018. in August of 2018, especially following the storms of March of 2018 and the money that came along with that town meeting. And we've done a lot of work here. And we have somewhat of a plan. You know, it's constantly changing year to year because new things occur with every winter. So your priorities change a bit, but we have a general direction of which way we're heading. And this ecological study brought to you by the planning board hasn't been reviewed by the town yet or the DPW superintendent. And, you know, while it may serve as while it may be a positive thing to explore, I don't know where it really fits in with the town's goals on this system. And we are looking to put additional funds from the, you know, in-town meeting as a separate warrant article. It's a borrowing amount towards this issue, stormwater, you know, climate change preparedness type of issues. So I guess I'm a little uneasy about this study almost like pulling the town in a different direction when we've done, you know, multiple years of work and kind of gone down a certain path already. And Lynn, you know, you're right. I did apply for dredging funds a couple of years ago, right. And I was trying to make that same argument of, you know, improving the stormwater system will provide benefit to open space and recreation.
Well,
So-
my motion certainly assumed that it's the planning committee and they would have talked to folks with your, you know, from your perspective, Tony. So I'll withdraw my motion.
So I have a question, which is when I listened to some of the discussions at town meeting, Tony, I thought the question was raised that we didn't really have good topographical maps of that area in order to make some of the decisions on. And wouldn't this give you those maps to help discuss the issue?
I didn't read that as the intent of the application. I read it more as like a ecological restoration that attempted to restore a 100-year-old, you know, flowing water system that went in the, you know, in the opposite direction. I almost read it as a big picture type of idea, but I didn't write it. Mariana may be able to help answer the question as far as the intent as a member of the planning board. But, you know, for us, we have the town dredged, you know, the data that the town has is a little dated, but of course with any project that we move forward with dredging, that'll be part of the engineering is having that survey work completed.
Madam Chair, this is Shannon Bianchi. I actually authored the application and kind of carried that through the planning board. If you all would like, I'd love to speak to that, to these issues that Tony's raising.
Committee, are we good for that, to welcome Shannon for this commentary? I do want to point out though, as Shannon, as you talk about this, would you clarify the two parts of your application?
Yes, ma'am. And I need to clarify first off that I can't at this point speak for our board. Now, the board only lives when we meet. So this is just my own personal commentary as a resident, just tuning in so that I could give some sort of report back to the board tomorrow when we meet. I am the corresponding secretary of the planning board. So you know, and in our last meeting, they did kind of give me permission to speak with you guys as well.
Well, that's great. So we welcome you. Thank you.
Before you go ahead, could you clarify this for me? Is this a proposal coming from the planning board?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this proposal as it stands now is endorsed by the planning board, is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
and it was unanimous
okay,
But as a study,
as a study.
graphic study, it's not the final product. It's just the study of the existing conditions and the possible recommendations with alternative approaches to the different problems. I think it would make a major difference for the people who live in the area of lowlands and it experience a lot of flooding and a lot of expenses, a lot of, difficulties during all these days when we do have those storms, and they come more and more often, and they are more and more, they're stronger and stronger. So I think this study, if there is money available, would be phenomenal, that we have some sort of a study that defines what is the option and what can be done. It doesn't say it has to be done. It doesn't do the bidding on it. It's just a study that explains what could be done. And certain components of this study may be looking at different options, and I hope that that will be the study. That will be the request for the study to clarify what's the problem on this huge area that is really serving a lot of residents of Nahant in terms of property values, which will raise if you don't have those floods, if they would not have those expenses for the insurances, the flood and everything else. So I think it's very necessary, but it depends, how much funding is available there and how much priorities. I think it's a priority that cannot hurt anything. On the contrary, it can define the proper action that's necessary or possible in the future. And I hope it will bring number of alternative options, not just the one, this is it and that's it.
Thank you, Mariana. Shannon, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Sure. To kind of to speak to what Tony was saying, there have been a lot of efforts since he's actually come in that are really impressive from my perspective. I've been focused on this one issue for, 5 or 6 years. And with Tony on board, there has been some really big headway that's been taking place in the golf course and lowlands area. What this particular effort that we're doing is kind of in tandem with all of these various efforts that have been going on with the MVP committee and what Tony and the DPW have been working at and everything else. But from a planning board perspective, we statutorily have the authority to conduct studies. And we want to do this study. So we want to exercise a statutory authority. And, we're turning to you all as a source of funding. We could turn to the town and say, town, we'd like to borrow $60,000, but we know that the town's in trouble with money and it's tight. So we're turning to the CPC and to another committee in town that might be able to help us do this study. So, and it just in line with that statute, once we're done with the study, it goes to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen implement whatever they want to implement from it. So it's not necessarily the end all. And to Tony's point that, that there's been other work going on, and we haven't done this to leave anyone out. We're trying to do this as an inclusive method with the base level understanding that it is an ecological system. And I could expand on that just as an example, and don't want to step on anyone's toes. But when you go with an excavator to the trench and you pull up the roots of those phragmites that are growing in the trench and you dispose of them, it disturbs the soil. And those phragmites are grown out of rhizomes, and they spread laterally in the ground 5 to 6 feet per season. And they really love it when you disturb their soil. So the work that was recently done at the golf course, even though it might look good in January, it's going to look twice as bad and be twice as bad by September. Now, what this study would do would bring in an aquatic restoration consultant to work with everyone on the same team to say that particular method of excavating those phragmites from the trenches is not the best method. And, you know, they might suggest a stem injection of some sort of thing, or maybe a vinegar thing, or some other more ecological way of ridding the area of phragmites. But that's just one small example. We have to have the science dictate what we do. And what this begins is that discussion with town. Hopefully we can come back with the, you know, to the Board of Selectmen, have a good idea of what we're looking at. And then the town can make a decision. Ultimately, that's what we're hoping for, is to give the town at town meeting options to choose from as to how they'd like to deal with it. I know that some people might not want to deal with it at all, and some people might want a city park, but we need to put it to vote. Ultimately, this is just the process or the beginning of the process.
Thank you, Shannon.
To the second part of your question, it being broke up into two things. The first part is the simply you're hiring the aquatic consultant or the aquatic restoration consultant to do the topographical map, which is almost as extensive as you can make it. You could do wetland delineation with that and give a really good idea of what you're looking at in three-dimensional perspective. The second part of that is just exactly what Miriana spoke to, which is having them give the town options, you know, 3 separate options. One, you know, outsourcing, one in-house, and one a mix. And then the town could choose, as you know, if they so do, to make a move on this. So with that, that's it. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Shannon. Other questions from committee members?
I guess I'm confused as to whether this works in tandem with other
Right.
town efforts, particularly through the administration. It's hard for me to believe that on a unanimous plan. I believe it. You know, these are good people on the planning board. Asking for 60,000 for a good project. I thought this was a no-brainer CPC thing too. But hearing from Tony, I'm just reluctant. If they think this is not the best use, and they think other funding sources could do the same thing. But, you know, I have a lot of respect for the work I've seen Shannon do, and Mariana's about as helpful as it gets in town. So I'm sort of conflicted as to what to do here. You know.
And to that, Mickey, or Mr. Long, I think that
Mickey's fine.
I think that we could, you know, I know that Tony had said last week that he'd like to speak to the planning board about this, and I hope that he comes tomorrow night and talks to us. You know, we're kind of a separate entity of town, statutorily and everything. So and when we get together, that's the only time that we're really a board. So it doesn't surprise me that there's not a lot of communication between the planning board and the town hall. But again, this could really be the beginning of a great thing. And I think particularly because the planning board is made of 7 folks that are around for 5 years, and they're willing to take this on as just as really simply as a vessel, take the workload off of town hall a bit with the project. By no means are we stepping on anyone's toes or getting out in front of anyone else's projects or any of that stuff. We're just trying to supplement with some really good scientific data for everyone.
Yeah, I think one of the roles of citizen participation in government is to take some of the burden off administrators who have to deal with every problem that the town faces, and may or may not have the resources and the time to look at projects in a long term. Instead, they're faced with immediate budgetary safety and health considerations of everything they have to deal with. And I see this request as one emanating from citizens who can afford to have a longer term view and the opportunity to get the best advice that there is. And this is the formula, I think, for improving the database on which decisions are made. But it really behooves the planning board to actively encourage town hall, i.e. Tony, and the DPW to come forward and express their concerns and questions and doubts and lay out what they need, the information they need. And then the planning board can respond as to how this particular plan will meet those needs. And from that kind of cooperation, you get better results.
So it sounds like these are some very good comments. It sounds like there's two opportunities this week for a consultation between the planning board and Tony and possibly Zach, because I know Zach is instrumental in all of this. So Tony, could you just comment about there's a planning board meeting tomorrow night? Not that you want to have a meeting every night of the week, Tony, I do get that. but it sounds like there's an opportunity to, and because we are working on such a tight schedule and so on, it sounds like there's an opportunity for tomorrow night. And then Ellen, Steves, could you just speak about the next Concom meeting and when that is, please?
It's on Wednesday, and I'm going to bring it up to Kristen because there are many issues on the low end of the project. Nothing goes out into the Lynn Harbor, for instance.
Right.
It's totally blocked by a seawall that somebody put in, last I heard.
There is
Madam Speaker, I think that one of the base level disagreements in town for the longest time has been whether or not the Bear Pond ecosystem was actually a ecosystem. And I think that may kind of explain the division of the two ideas here. I mean, we have the town that's really interested in the flooding and coastal sea level rise and mitigation of from that perspective. This particular angle of the same issue, all that it does is it changes kind of the definition of what that is. And by doing so, it opens up the floodgates, without a pun intended, to really big grant dollars. And when you go to the Fish and Wildlife Service, and when you go to the Division of Ecological Restoration in Massachusetts, you approach a project from an ecological restoration standpoint, which is exactly what the CPA funds would be used for in the open space category, is preservation and restoration. If you approach the idea and the project from it's an ecosystem standpoint, then not only are you being holistic with it, but you're opening up yourself to a lot of more larger grants. The way that the town has perceived it and tackled it from the past while, and including Tony, because he's been so good with it, is from a flooding mitigation standpoint, a washover standpoint, a runoff standpoint, those kind of flooding events. I've not once in the 10 years I've lived here heard anything from town hall about the 3.5 gallons of fresh water that's coming into that system every day. And those springs are notated on maps. but there's no reference to that. And to say that, oh, it's just a clogged up system, it was a marsh, it was a swamp or whatever, it has been only because of man's hands. And that is the other major criteria when you get involved at the state level and the fed level. People, they want to know if it was them that did this, that caused the problem. That also opens up the big dollar grants because they'll want to come in and fix the problem. So it's really up to you all as a committee to kind of make that decision, in essence, to put it to the town to vote. Is it an ecology or an ecological system, or is it just a marsh with a golf course and a trail that gets flooded with runoff? You know, we believe that it's an ecological system, and that's so the base level disagreements that you all might hear probably have something to do with that. And obviously, you know, we're prepared to present at town meeting to kind of clarify why it's an ecological system, you know, but anyway, I'll step back and you can have some more questions.
Thank you. This is Tony. And where I was going was that, you know, the town, whether myself or Zach or the Board of Selectmen agree or disagree in the direction the planning board is going, Mr. Bianchi's correct in the fact that they have a statutory right to explore this option. What I was saying was that, you know, we haven't been part of the conversation. I would be concerned about it slowing down progress that we're already making. However, I am going to the planning board tomorrow night, to their meeting tomorrow night. So I think that we can continue to have a conversation, and I know we have to rapidly if it's going to influence your committee's decision on what to do. Although it may not. I guess your committee is really deciding whether it's eligible or not whether it's worthy or not, right? So
well, no, we have both of those criteria. It has to be eligible and it has to be worthy of us to sort of pass it along for recommendation to town meeting.
So we will we'll try to make progress on communication with the planning board on their goal and reply back to you as soon as possible as to where the town stands on it.
That would be great. That because we meet again next Monday, and I would really like to hear back from the applicant and Tony as to the coordination on this.
That's perfect. And I'll circle back tomorrow and we'll reach back out to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
It's great to have
Thank
you
God for all
here.
your work on the committee, Shannon and Mariana. This is good stuff. I appreciate your work.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and I do appreciate the efforts. So let's move on. Well, let's keep this open, subject to further consultation next week. But all of you sort of really look at this very carefully because it's a very interesting article. The Nahant Public Library, beloved institution, is up again. And we've got Sharon Hawks with us tonight, so we're fortunate for that. Many of you perhaps have witnessed the recent restoration of the terrace project that was funded with an article that was passed 2 years ago. It was a $400,000 bond, which we will be paying off over the next 10 years or so. Sharon and her team and the trustees have come back in consultation with their architect for a further grant for a variety, sort of touching lots of different elements of this building, from masonry restoration to wood window restoration and painting, some roofing, really the rest of the envelope work that was identified in the report that was done, I think now 4 years ago, as part of a comprehensive assessment that was by Design Associates, and subsequently Sharon has been working with Richard Smith as the project architect. The application requests $140,694 to be matched by that amount for a total project cost of $281,388. As Ellen has kindly pointed out, I was requesting clarification on the matching grant, on their matching capacity. So perhaps with that, since Sharon is kindly here, I will ask her to help clarify just what that is about. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. Yes, I was in the midst of writing this one, this grant at the same time I had just begun fleshing out the grant to Mass Historical Commission. And it was pointed out to me that the maximum grant that you can receive from Mass Historical Commission is $100,000. That is correct, which means I should probably revise my ask if that is possible, slightly upwards. I also had conversation with Ross Deckel at Mass Historical Commission. They only anticipate in fiscal 22 of having $800,000 total to distribute. So my question was, do you partially fund these grants? And the answer is yes, they often do. And so I have sent, I will be sending a prioritized list this week to them so that if we are not funded the full 100,000, perhaps they will consider a partial grant fund. So what we're looking for from the committee, if you would consider a slight revision upwards, I would be asking for 161,388 with the idea that perhaps 60 to 80,000 gets funded by CPC. We have additional funds from the Friends, and I'll be talking to the Board of Trustees tomorrow night about potentially utilizing those funds as well. And so if there were 60,000 from the state and there were 60,000 from the Friends, then we would in fact make the total cost of the grant at $281,388. Now, I will say this is actually, there's one piece left in all of this grant that is not asked for at this time, and that's about a $200,000 repointing plan. I am less convinced that that is as urgent as the other parts of the grant, and I also hesitate that we could pull it all off in 1 year to repoint the entire building and do the roof and the gutters and the drainage and the windows and the vents and the bulkhead. Those are all the various aspects of this, and repoint the entire building all in 1 year. So I made the decision to hold back on the idea of repointing the whole building at this time, and let's see what can be done to seal up this building so that it doesn't leak, so that it doesn't blow sandstone from the quoins into the building, so that it doesn't have efflorescence and water coming in through the gables, and so that potentially a large amount of rainwater doesn't wash into the adjoining neighbor's property. That's what we're looking to do.
Thank you, Sharon.
Where does repointing fit in terms of priorities?
I don't see it as a high priority at this point, but a within 5 years type of priority.
So was repointing included in the original total grant of 281K or not?
No, it is
Okay.
not.
So 281K was the request for the other items. And I thought I heard you say that you were hoping, fingers crossed, maybe anticipating is too strong a word, for 100K from the state. Is that correct? And
Yes, their maximum is 100K. So it's what I quoted to you as a match is not correct. It's actually less than what I quoted to you. So their maximum match would be $100,000.
right,
Since they only have 800,000 total to give to all of the grant applicants,
right.
I am anticipating that it would be less than that.
I
Okay,
think that's correct.
okay.
How
And
much, we don't know.
do you have any
Sitting
idea?
here with a grant in my lap.
Right.
It's monumental, and we are going to be right up to the last day, continuing to look it over and tweak it and get final signatures and letters of recommendation.
So I understand that, but we need a ballpark. So I understand you're in a very difficult situation because you're trying to balance an unknown versus a mystery. So
Exactly.
I want to get a feeling for just the overall numbers. So 281K would be reasonable for the project, not including pointing. And the question is, how much will you get from the state? Not 100, how much? And how much do you think the Friends will be able to come up with? Because the difference between that sum and 281 is what you're really asking us.
That's correct. The Friends already have over $60,000 that they have designated as a building fund.
Right.
They also stipulated that that fund may be used at will by the Board of Trustees of the library. So they have placed the money there. They have put a temporary restriction on it, and some of it is permanently restricted by the donors. So that money is there it's up to the Board of Trustees to decide if they want to touch that. And that's part of what we'll be talking about tomorrow night.
Okay.
So trying to be conservative, if there was a $60,000 gift from the state, 60,000 from the Friends, and 161,388 from CPC, then that equals the total amount that I'm asking.
Now I see how you got there.
Does that make sense?
Yes, now
I'm sorry. And of course, then you send this to bid and you don't know for sure what the bids are going to be. But what we did do was, as Lynn said, this was looked at originally in 2018 by Design Associates. They put pricing in. We asked someone to come back and reprice everything just a few months ago so that we would have more current pricing. And that's what I'm basing the grant totals on today.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee?
Well, I think at the very least, you're going to need to inform us what sort of commitment the Friends or the trustees are going to make of the Friends funds that the Friends have put aside.
Right.
Right, because that's one of the elements in the formula. On the other hand, there's still a lot of smoke and mirrors in terms of how much money is coming from the state.
Right. And I can throw it back to you all a little bit. They would also, the state would also be looking for as much commitment as possible from the matching grantors. You would be that.
I see.
So any provisional letter or anything that could come from you, by the way, this gets submitted on Friday, postmark, would be helpful toward securing money from the state as well. It is how it all works.
So did everyone understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
More
She's
or less.
asking for, give us, encouragement right now in order to make this work. So, but I will say this, because my firm frequently is involved with this program. In fact, too frequently, I would say, that the good news is that Sharon, if she has the endorsement of the trustees tomorrow night, will have the baseline match to serve as the baseline necessary to serve as the potential MPPF match. And they have not given anything above $60,000 for about 8 years now. So this is just the reality. So I think that the part of the issue this committee is facing with this, Sharon, is that the amount of grant requests exceed the money that we have available. And so committee, what I would ask you to consider is, we have the ability to consider this as a bonding article. We've had Tony and Allison and I have had some back and forth today on this subject. So it is possible to consider for these higher dollar amounts, the idea of bonding for a 10-year period. And that kind of gives us a little bit more flexibility as we're considering these things. I also think, Sharon, that it is important to make sure that you have the budget you need for the work that's necessary. I mean, it's just there's been years of deferred maintenance on that building. And I know that you and the trustees are working hard to address that. So I don't want to shortchange this budget at this point. Or that's my opinion.
Thank you.
I wouldn't advise shortchanging this budget.
I do appreciate that. Parts of the grant, as they were recommended by Design Associates in 2018, there are urgent parts of this ask that were supposed to be done by 2019. And then unfortunately, one of the parts of that had to do with the membrane roof. There's actually a flat roof above the main hall, covered by a rubber membrane. And back several months ago, when we had one of those big rain and windstorms, it did pull up the edge of the membrane. One of the things that we were being told was a risk, flooded underneath, flooded all the way down through the attic and into the computer room, coming out through the ceiling. We got lucky. We got the repair covered by insurance, and they came in fairly quickly, first to repair the membrane and then to open up the ceiling and seal it all off. Had some excellent job done there. We might not be so lucky with the next one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you very much,
And
everybody.
any further comments or questions from the committee?
I think we need a report on what the trustees do.
So I think that, Sharon, if you could plan on coming back next Monday with a report on the trustees. But having said that, you are also, I know, anxious to have something said by this committee as to help you with your grant application due this Friday.
That's correct.
So I'm looking for some imagination, some creativity in terms of a motion for a provisional endorsement of this request. And I always look for creativity either from Austin Antrim or from Mickey Long. Both of whom are secret, are hiding me.
Before you move into that, if I can expand on what you were mentioning earlier, and I haven't even had a chance to talk to Sharon about this yet, but so when we were looking at a a schedule on a bond for $750,000, which
Mhm.
didn't look too bad.
Right.
The much of the work that is critical, you know, by of the town hall and of the library is similar, both identified by design associates, right? So if I'm just doing some quick math here, Sharon is looking for 161,388. She also mentioned about $200,000 in a repointing project. Of course, that's just estimated. If I look at design associates numbers from 2018 on the town hall, their total amount on town hall was 362,500. So when you put those together and you're at 723,888. So you could, or we could, I could speak with Sharon, and with the way I look at it is town hall and the library having similar work needed, being right next to each other, combining the two projects, bidding them together, and then that would give Sharon plenty for the library, and half and half basically for library and the town hall, if the committee was interested in doing that large of a borrowing.
I think that that's an interesting concept, because I could also add the ADA project as well at town hall to that list of projects, Tony. I don't know if that was in your
The 362 that I mentioned from Design Associates in 2018, I don't believe includes that ADA project.
I don't think so either. So conceptually, this is very interesting, because I will say this, Sharon, having you come back year after year to us for another appropriation, because I can see that $200,000 coming for the repointing doesn't make sense to me. I think when we were looking at the last project, we tried to say bundle things in together, and let's, whether they're done in one construction season or not, which is perfectly possible, by the way, for this project. A $500,000 project would be grist
Right,
for
but
a
not the
contract.
MHC match. That match has to be, that part of it would have to be complete in one.
Yeah, don't worry about the MHC too much, quite honestly, because it's small potatoes compared to what you really need.
No, I completely agree. And I agree with Tony. If it is possible to scale this up and take care of the similar needs at town hall, I'm all for it.
So let's why don't you and Tony, Sharon and Tony, get together and sort of work that budget's ask out and plan on returning to us on Monday. In terms of what you might need for this grant application on Friday, Sharon, I guess what I would ask the committee for is a motion that gives conceptual support sufficient for some wobbly letter that I'll write that says the committee is actively considering CPA support for this particular project, and doesn't commit us too much, but just enough.
I think you can tout the support we've given the library in the past, Lynn.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any
Absolutely.
problem with this. I think it's just giving Sharon a piece of paper so she can get this out the door.
So I'll move, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I cannot repeat everything you just said. For the
No,
motion,
you
but I'm
don't say
sure
it's going to be a
Paul and you
wobbly
can work it
letter.
out.
It's going to be a letter of endorsement, and I will draft it and sort of circulate it to the group, but I'd like to be able to have your support for that. And I'd like a second for Mickey's motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. I'd like to then, if there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a roll call on that, starting with Paul Spurns.
Aye.
Ellen Goldberg.
Aye.
Mickey Long.
Aye.
Mariana. Mariana, are you still there? Maybe not. Ellen Steves.
Yes, aye.
Muted myself. I just muted myself. I'm sorry.
All right. Are you, this
Yes,
is a vote.
yes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. Austin.
Yes.
Nancy? Nancy Catalma?
Yes.
Okay, and
You
Lynn
must have a better
Spencer, yeah,
meeting to go to, Nancy. Okay.
yeah. And Lynn Spencer, yes. So I will work on that letter of endorsement. So moving on.
Thank you,
Uh,
everybody.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you for coming to our meeting, and we'll see you next Monday. Number 5 is from the Nahant American Legion. It's for interior painting and floor refinishing, plus an exterior sign. They're applying under the category of historic preservation for a grant of $8,936 to be matched by $1,200 for a total project cost of $10,136. They have provided vendor quotes for $6,400 for the interior work and $3,800 and change for the sign. You want to keep rolling over to the right, Ellen? So here's the problem I saw with this. Very thoughtful application is that they provided the documentation for the work that has actually already been accomplished.
All of it?
No, as I said in the note, for the interior refurbishment,
Ah, okay.
the sign has not been implemented. And I understand it's in the process of review by relevant town committees. The life-saving station is subject to a planning board, a site plan review by the planning board, as well as there would be review by the Nahant Historical Commission, which is involved with the preservation restriction that exists on the property. And of course, the major tenant, which is in fact the Nahant Preservation Trust. So committee, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
So Lynn, are you saying that there is a limitation on paying for things that have already been done?
I believe that is true. That is what I'm
so
saying.
That's point one. Is there any elasticity to that regulation?
I'm not an expert on that. So
Okay.
I think that that could be something that would be investigated.
Okay. Then
It's his tradition. I've never been involved in any kind of funding situation that funds things that have been retroactively done. But, you know, there's perhaps a first time.
okay. Then the second question I have is about the sign. This is being done under the aegis of a historic preservation project. Is there?
That's a category that they applied for.
Yeah. Is
Sorry, let me deal with that.
you quiet the dog by muting it? That worked.
Sorry.
The dog have a mute button too?
She
Okay.
doesn't.
So, is there such a thing as a historically correct sign? I mean, I don't know what era they're harking back to for a historically correct sign. Perhaps you could tell me what that is.
I talk too much. I want to hear from other members of this committee on this. No? So I will say this, that the signs that are now at the life-saving station were funded by CPA funds under the Short Beach Master Plan and Nahant Life-Saving Station grant that was probably from 2012 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So the sign that was applied to the facade of the building was a replica of what was, you know, the kind of life-saving station sign that was in that particular location. The interpretive signs were also approved as something that helped explain the history of the site and how the building was used. So I think you've raised a legitimate question, Paul, about whether a new sign for the Legion as a tenant to the trust in this space is a allowable cost under CPC, under community preservation funding. I think that it's something that we need to look into very carefully. And I'd love to have a committee member volunteer to be the one to sort of tackle that question. Otherwise, I'll ask for somebody to do it. But I do see a question being raised by Dana Sheehan. I see his hand up. So Dana, would you please like to join this conversation?
Sure. Thanks for recognizing me, Lynn, and greetings to the Community Preservation Committee. So I just had some questions about just the overall appropriateness of having a sign paid for by community preservation funds. I guess the idea of this grant is to preserve the Nahant Life-Saving Station as a working building that supports the community, and so that's recognizable. And the sign helps with that recognition to the public. You know, it's been through the historical commission, and I don't know if it's been, Lynn, you would know about this, if it's been approved or not, the sign.
No, it hasn't come to us at all yet. So,
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm not leading that effort, but I did participate. I did write this grant application as a member of the Legion. And again, the whole idea is to preserve it as a working space. The Legion doesn't own the space. We are a tenant of, you know, the town owns the building. And so we're trying to preserve the quality of the space, and the sign was part of it. So, and then the second thing is the retroactive nature of it. Is that something that is in the law or the regulations that implement community preservation, or how does that work?
well, I think it is something that we have to look into. It. The work would have to be approved by town meeting, and it's already been approved. It's already been done. So maybe we should kick this over to town council and let that person take a look at the statute and whether that is, see what his or her interpretation is.
Right. I mean, the work was preservation work. There was no change, material change to the space. It was just paint and then refinish the floors.
Hey, Dana, I helped you with the paint colors. I know what happened.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. But again, I didn't realize at the time, because I would have advised you not to do it, quite honestly, until the town meeting approved the grant. But we can certainly raise this as a question.
Yeah, Lynn, you know, that's a good point. You know, I wasn't the one that made the call. It's a, you know, it's an organization decision that was made to move. The decision was made to move forward. That's looking back, we shouldn't have done that. But just a couple of words to describe the process to the committee, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the Legion is a valued part of the town, and you know, we want to be respectful of what they do and what they stand for. So I think perhaps committee, the best thing for me to do is to suggest that we ask them for an opinion, ask town council for an opinion on this. Both the retroactive funding as well as the sign.
Yeah, I'll move that we seek an opinion from town council, which is, but to be candid, it's just a stall for me, because it's unfortunate that the historic event of the mini wall coming, that, you know, folks are trying to keep the place more than just spruced up or pretty well preserved. And that event's an important event nationally. That wall's only going to be seen in 2 Massachusetts sites, Nahant being one of them. So I, you know, if
is that still going to happen, Mickey?
Yeah, it got stalled. COVID kicked back to this year, and I'm hearing from folks. I've seen posting from folks that it's back on. I forget the dates particularly. I had an organization give a substantial contribution to that historical opportunity. Yeah, I mean, if this is tough stuff, because you'd like to fund good things like this, but all these moving parts going, so I'll move that it goes to town council for review.
Okay. Do I have to have a motion? Do I have to take this as a motion, or can I just sort of quietly move this along to town council?
Yeah, I hope you can quietly move it along to town council.
Let's just do that, because I know it's late, and we've got several more of these things to do. So committee, if you'll just empower me to do that, I'll proceed with that. Let's go to the next one on this chart, Ellen, please. And that's going to be the town of Nahant for the next three applications. So the town has applied for, for the basketball and tennis courts under the category of recreation for $120,000. This is necessary to fund the balance of what that project will actually cost based on the bids that were received a year ago. We have already allocated $160,000 to this project, but when it went out to bid, it came in at $280,000. Zach was able to actually work with the bidder who is willing to hold their price, and this would be the amount needed to finish and execute the project.
So we approved 160 and it's going to cost 280.
That's right. That's the story. So if we want a basketball and tennis court, this is what's needed to make that work.
And pickleball.
Oh, okay, pickleball.
Well, there you go.
So I won't hold my breath while I'm waiting for a motion.
Yeah, well, I think we're in 160. It was worth it to us at 160. I don't see why it wouldn't be worth it to us at 280.
So why don't you put that into a motion?
I move that we conceptually approve the project and the scale of the cost of the project as proposed, subject to deliberations when we come down to dealing with facts of hard cash.
Okay,
I'll second it.
great. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call on this. Paul Spurn,
Aye.
Alan Goldberg,
Aye.
Mickey Long,
Aye.
Mariana,
Aye.
Alan Steves,
Aye, get it done.
okay, Austin,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Lynn, yes. So unanimous, subject to the final deliberation on the funding amounts. Next one is Flash Road Amphitheater. Tony, are you still on?
Oh,
Tony?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you can't,
yes,
can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah, okay, because I would like you to be able to speak to this. This is being applied to under open space and recreation. Oops, I see the first number didn't, the actual grant request is $150,000. And there is no match of it in this scenario. It's based on a vendor quote. And I raised the questions, has this been reviewed with the Flash Road Recreation stakeholders, the neighbors, the Conservation Commission? But before we get into those questions, Tony, since you're good enough to be with us tonight, why don't you explain your idea behind this?
So the essentially, the old Babe Ruth field, which is the field closest to the basketball courts, with the old wooden dugouts that are falling apart. We've had, where we had town meeting last September. The infield there is grown in. It doesn't get used as a field. We have 3 other Little League fields. And we were really looking to find ways to bring the community together. And this was one, this is a piece that we feel serves, all ages, all different types of events, whether it be, Johnson School graduation, whether it be Park League, kids programming, whether it be an event that features a band. We've talked about, we are not including any type of electronics in this project in this application that were presented to you, just running electricity to the amphitheater. And we would obviously we would put together a public process and put together rules and regulations about, noise and when, the place could be used, because we don't want to cause any type of negative impacts to the neighborhood as far as, noise or traffic. But, the town, I think, is, in need of an outdoor space that could, be a center point for a whole wide range of events. And this area is, it's a good space for it. So we have not gone in front of Conservation Commission, or I did speak with Chairman Devereaux of the Open Space Committee about it. Talked with the Board of Selectmen about it, obviously, too. But if approved at town meeting, it would launch us into a public process regarding, different styles or rules or regulations.
Thank you, Tony. So it's a fairly, it's not a huge structure. I think amphitheater is a big word for it. It could be called a pavilion as well. It's about 30 feet wide. I can't pull it up on my little phone right now in terms of the depth, but it's not huge. And I do see that it's set that at least the sketch that you provided to us puts it on a masonry foundation with steps and so on. Could you just talk about what your thoughts are on that?
So on the Mass state bid list is the structure itself. So they range from anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000, just the structure.
Right.
The base, which is in that picture or in a couple of the pictures I sent you, would be an additional cost. Certainly we would make sure it's ADA accessible as well.
Right.
So, we, in speaking with Vicky Massoni, our town engineer that's mostly works on recreational projects, and looking at what was on the state bid list, we came up with $150,000, which would probably be plenty enough to handle, site work, prep, a stage-like foundation, and then, of course, the purchase and install of the pavilion above it.
I know everybody's tired, but what other questions do they have about this project? It's in proximity to wetlands. We already have the tennis and basketball court where it shouldn't be, but where it is. As we think about the wetlands regulations today, this would be another structure in that same kind of a zone.
I don't think where this is actually in the wetlands area. I think it's just outside of it, but I'm
outside.
It is in the flood zone.
It's in the flood zone, yeah.
Yeah, because that extends into the fire station.
Right.
Beyond that.
I mean, that whole area is flood zone. Let's just get it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So does it have any redundancy to the Sears Pavilion in terms of the things that could be used for in the same way?
That's a great question, Nancy.
A Sears Pavilion.
The gazebo structure at Bailey's Hill, Tony, which is a nice structure that was first created in 1976 for the bicentennial, I believe, and then CPC helped do some reconstruction on it. And one of our very first grants, I think. It's got a nice lawn around it. Not so many geese visit it, I will say, as you get over at that ball field. But
I mean, the Flash Road Park area is our central location for open space and recreation in the town. That's where Park League is. That's where a lot of other events can be held. There's parking, there's bathrooms. So, bringing it into that area where, most people are congregating anyways, seems to be a good fit.
Lynn, I don't mind commenting. My sense when it comes to the town asking for CPC funding, I'm assuming that the 3 Board of Selectmen have looked into this. If this is what folks think they need, this is where I weigh in on. If it's eligible, who am I? These folks look at this on a day-to-day basis much more than I do. I sort of want to follow their guidance on this, other than, of course, recommending the town and FinCom that this is eligible.
thank you, Mickey. In addition to talking with the Board of Selectmen, and I realize that you perhaps have not, well, maybe outside of the quote 100-foot wetlands, it seems like consultation with Conservation Commission would make sense. Is there an existing Recreation Commission that is part of this application?
There's the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee, which Nancy can speak to as well. But they're just, I guess I would say they're kind of in the stages of gathering all previous identified plans, putting them into one, with a consultant. There's going to be a public meeting on that in the upcoming weeks, and
Right.
there'll be multiple. So we have a committee, but they, I guess I wouldn't say that they're at that stage yet but Nancy, I don't want to speak for you guys. You're better to speak to it than me as to where you guys are.
No, that's fine. We are in the process of trying to get out this 2021 plan that should have been updated, a long time ago. So we are involved in that, but we will be having meetings involving the townspeople and asking what they want in terms of surveys and stuff like that. So it's something that we could include in that sort of process. But isn't there also a pure recreation committee? And
I thought there was,
yeah, I
yeah.
think Kelly Frary is the head of it. That's the information I had, because we sent something out to them about our meeting.
I guess I see them more as active programming than planning. I see
Okay.
more as like the master planning arm of the conversation. So I think if this were to be built, this would be something that would maybe get pulled into their world when it comes to, programming and Park League and that sort of thing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So you need a motion to approve in concept pending financing?
You could do that.
So moved.
Can I get a second on that?
Second, Nancy.
Thank you. All right, I'll ask for a roll call vote on that. Paul Spurn,
Aye.
Ellen Goldberg,
Aye.
Mickey,
Right.
Mariana? Mariana,
Muted again, aye.
okay.
Your manners are very good.
It's good. Ellen Steves,
Aye.
Austin,
I think I want to follow up with Tony on this area a little bit. So I think I won't vote on this at this time.
okay. I'm going to join Austin in being cautious about this, so I'll vote no at this time. And Nancy?
Aye.
Okay, but the motion carries. So we will look forward to further consultation on this, Tony, because it's a very interesting idea. And I want to say that the idea behind it makes a lot of sense, providing opportunities for people to come together in a safe and fun way is always a good idea. So next is Green Lawn is number 8, please. That's the town of Nahant for the Green Lawn Cemetery walls. Tony up again. This is applying for $150,000, which for what is being described as what could be a $750,000 investment. And I remind everyone that the Green Lawn Cemetery, which is on the National Register, features a granite wall that extends along the Hot Road with a ceremonial arch. And then also there's a portion of that property that abuts a road in the back that I can't really remember its name of, but that wall and that entry gate structure is definitely an important feature to this cemetery. Design Associates in 2018, as part of that comprehensive plan for the Green Lawn Cemetery and Ellingwood Chapel, Town Hall, and the library, did assess this wall as being in serious need of restoration and gave a budget estimate of $750,000 for the work, which I know is substantial. But Tony has come forward with a grant application to begin that process, but we also may want to consider what it means to bond the whole thing. And I will just say, from the perspective of somebody who does historic preservation work all the time, the idea of having 5 different contractors coming in and doing 5 different projects on this wall over a 5 or 10 year period does not bode well for the quality of the work and the consistency of what you would get for it. So I personally, and Lynn Spencer, think that it makes sense to look at the whole project rather than in pieces. So with that, I'll stop and hear from the group. Anyone?
In 2018, the Design Associates identified the arch as the critical need at $94,150. But they also identified, other portions of the wall in critical need of repairs as well. And then the total amount at around $731,000.
This is all 2018, right? Estimates. I mean, COVID construction has gone crazy. I'd be shocked if that remains the pricing. I've reviewed this. We've talked about this often enough. This is something I just soon send right to the town to see if they want to do it, because if we don't do something about making a recommendation in town that it needs to be done, it's just going to fall down. So that's my input. I'll wait on a motion for right now, but my sense is you may as well get it done, but good luck getting it for that $750,000.
We had thought about, this was something that was on our radar for a couple of years now. So it was like when I dusted off the Design Associates assessment and saw that big number, that's when I adjusted my application to you to kind of give you 2 different options. Maybe just hit the critical need or look at a larger borrowing. And we followed up with our financial advisors, what would be the 10-year, annual note on something like that. And it was around like $75,000 or $80,000 a year. At 2.25%. So not all that bad. And that's really what led us to
already paid.
the conversation earlier.
And they're
About,
checking with legal to see if that's can even be submitted.
sorry, I got some.
And they haven't paid, they didn't pay for that, but they think that they should, under conservation, have a sign done.
What? Do you have someone on the call here on their iPhone is unmuted?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tony.
So anyways, you know, when we looked into that schedule, it said, you know, where it wasn't all that bad, that's when we we said, all right, well, hey, if the committee's interested in presenting something like this to the town, you know, maybe we should look at that for the library and town hall work. So I apologize for the late, you know, change of thought on that earlier today. But that's the background on the application anyways.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Other questions or comments about this application?
I just want to say I sort of agree with Lynn and Mickey about getting this done and it being an important thing to get done. I'm just sort of wondering sort of how many other large funding projects have been already looked at by architects. I know there's the ADA at Town Hall and that stuff, but is there other stuff on the horizon in the next couple of years that will need to be borrowed for? Or is this sort of one of the last biggest components aside from the ADA and the library?
Tony, I don't know if you have a comment about that. I do, but I want to hear from you first.
I would say yes. I think that there are large dollar projects that when, you know, this study was done in 2018 that looked at Ellingwood Chapel, looked at the wall at the cemetery, looked at town hall, looked at library, and they presented a number of projects that were, you know, in critical need of repair immediately to 5 years down the road. Now that's 3 years ago. So anything that hasn't been accomplished that was identified in any of those reports is, you know, I would say approaching critical need. So there's still plenty of work, I think, at Ellingwood Chapel, and certainly the library, the town hall, and then this wall as well.
So I think the question is really how much more should we be looking at in terms of needs? And I think, you know, maybe we should take another look at those reports, Tony, for next week and be able to report on, you know, the specific numbers we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that, you know, part of this is that the change in contribution from the state. So in previous years, the budget for CPC was much less. We had less of a matching dollar from the state, right? So we were a little bit more, I think, cautious in our approach of how much we try to ask for it in a year, knowing that there was so many different, you know, requests. With the good news of increased matching funds, it kind of opens the door a little bit more to some of these larger projects. So I think that's part of it too.
I think that's true. I do think that the question is, you know, do we have other sort of big things? You know, for instance, we funded the major work on the wharf on multiple phases of work, some of which was bonded, some of which was outright grants. So there'd be, you know, obviously we've got East Point in front of us. We've got other things as well. But let's for next Monday, Tony, have you take another look at the Design Associates report. I'd be happy to consult with you about that, because I know that at Ellingwood Chapel, for instance, we had a major project. We've had a recent MPPF project on the chapel. We've had, work at the library and so on. We should just really update that report and be prepared to talk with the committee next Monday. I know I'm going to push us just to look at the rest of this chart, and then I'm going to talk about what we're going to do for next Monday.
know, a decent chunk of the cost of the Ellingwood project that we just recently did was investigation of the, to match the mortar.
Right.
Do you think having that sample, having that match is a cost savings now that we,
Yeah.
as far as working on the wall and other parts of the chapel?
Yes. Yes, I think that that's all useful. Ellen, did you just go crazy here for a moment? She's saying, I'm done. Yes, Tony, I think that is all grist for this. I'd like to hold on this subject to further discussion next Monday. I'd like to just say the rest of the things that I put down here are things that represent existing obligations. This is the library $400,000 bond that I mentioned earlier. Below it would be if East Point gets funded, there will be a year one. But in fact, when I did this initially, I was thinking, oh, it'd be right away. But in fact, it would be year one in fiscal year 23. So technically, that is not a draw on this year's, funding opportunities. We do have, because we have had no applications for housing, there would be a housing reserve. And I just put for budget purposes, $50,000. I think it will be less, but that's 10% of our full appropriation. Yeah, so. And then we have the housing reserve from the previous year because we didn't have, that's the balance from the previous year because those articles were not heard by town meeting. So that's the rest of this chart in terms of a snapshot of where we are. So any questions about that so far?
Well, it seems to me that the total project cost, right, we had talked about a total being something like $900,000 in the spreadsheet that we looked at before. So as long as the categories match up, at least in terms of gross revenue, we seem to have enough to cover the amount of grants that are before us. Am I wrong?
Yes, because you have to factor in last year's appropriation, which is $626,000.
Okay.
If
So that's just for this year.
Yeah,
right.
that's just for this year. So we have some work to do. That's why actually being strategic about considerations like bonding will be helpful to us. At the same time, that is obligating CPC monies for a certain period of time.
Yep.
We just 2 years ago, for instance, finished off paying off the wharf debt. So we'll have to sort of ponder those factors as we think about this next week. For next week, I think we're asking for repeat sort of presentations or repeat analysis on the planning board application for $60,000. We'll hope that we can get a rapid turnaround from consultation on that. We also are kicking the American Legion request to town council for review. And that would be another one that we'd hope to get a quick response on.
And
The land company.
Land company, yeah.
And then the New Nahant Land Company. Yep, I'm going backwards, aren't I? Yes, that's right. That was the first one. So, New Nahant Land Company for sure. Planning board application. American Legion. We're going to hear back from the library. it would be helpful for applicants who are hearing me as I'm speaking, if they are providing any additional information, that they get it to us in advance of the meeting, at least by, by the previous Friday, so the committee can review that over the weekend.
Lynn, it was mentioned that these estimates we had from the design company were low because prices have risen in the meantime. Is there some kind of factor we could use to say what a 2018 estimate would be in dollars now?
Yeah, now I'm putting on my firm's cap as I'm doing this, but we've been using 4.5% per year based on what our professional cost estimators have been giving us. I will say that in the institutional marketplace, we have not seen big escalating costs. The residential marketplace is crazy right now. But in terms of historic preservation projects, we've been actually getting quite good bids. So knock on wood on that. But I think that as Tony looks at Green Lawn Cemetery, which is one of the ones we want to hear about for next week, we should provide an inflationary factor. So we're asking Tony.
10%.
I'm sorry?
5% per year of
Yes.
10% or 15%
I said 4.5% per year.
per year times 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it rolls up, sure, for sure. Tony, what you and I can do together is to look at the combination of Green Lawn Cemetery, the library, and Town Hall, and be able to respond to the committee about what other big outstanding projects we're looking at there. I'll volunteer to work with you on that.
Okay.
And how do we engage the town council for those issues?
We turn to Tony. That's why he's here.
Yeah,
And some of the other reasons why.
I will, I can put him on an email with Lynn. If that works.
Committee, is that going to work for you?
And if he isn't able to answer your questions, ahead of time, I can always ask him to join your meeting next Monday.
Okay. And who is town council these days?
I would probably ask Dan Script to help you guys out.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's probably most familiar with the committee in the past, so.
Yep, we've worked with him in the past. Thank you, Tony. So that would be fine. If you could sort of put us together, I'll do my best to, I'll provide the applications and the questions that we're asking him to resolve. Okay.
Okay.
Well, everyone, I do appreciate this. Has been a long meeting, and it's just a preview of what we're going to have probably next week. What I would also do is update this chart so it's reflects some of the discussion we've had today, and get that to you. And we'll meet again on next Monday at 7 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mickey.
Second.
Always count on you. Can I have a second for that?
Thank you for
Yes.
your hard work.
Can we have a show of hands if we're all in favor of going home for the night?
Yes.
Thank you, Lynn, for your hard work. Appreciate
Thank you, Lynn.
it. Bye.
Well, thank you for everyone, and thank you, Ellen,
You're
for
amazing.
navigating this. So, all right, off we go rejoicing. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
All right.